Hey everybody, happy Sunday. My name is John Shaw with Cruise Addicts, and I'm here with my guest, Michael Consoli. He's a top travel agent selling more Viking cruises than anyone in the entire world. Happy Sunday afternoon, Michael.
Yeah, happy Sunday to you too.
You know, I kind of sprung this topic, but I think it's a great one, and it's very timely for so many cruisers. As I was just telling you, I'm constantly monitoring Facebook pages and groups and whatnot, and I think there's an evolution in cruisers. I think some people like some of the things that come with big ship cruising. Maybe they've always stuck with that one brand. They're very loyal to these brands, but I think there's an evolution in cruising. I've had coworkers in the past where they start out with one brand and they get very loyal to that. But then, they go, I'm really tired of this. Or I'm really tired of that. Or I like this. Or why is that? And they're very passionate about changes because they don't want what they've gotten loyal to be changed and messed with. But as me and you have had the option to do, we've tried different brands and we've seen these strengths and also some of the weaknesses of all of these big ships. So the question today is, why should I take a Viking cruise? So I'm going to come to you at that trade show or walk into your office, and maybe you're speaking to that customer that maybe they know big ships, maybe they've never smaller ships, or maybe they haven't cruised on a more inclusive product like Viking. So I'm going to hand it off to you. I've just called you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, this is what we do every day, right? We try to fit the guest to the right product. It's something that we spend a good amount of time on the phone or with our guests doing, trying to fit the right product. So I think that, there's a lot of different options out there, right? We have, the value lines like Carnival and MSC, and then Royal Caribbean or Norwegian, Celebrity, Princess, Oceania, Azamara, Regent 7 Seas, Silver Sea, Crystal, Viking Ocean. There's a lot to choose from. And the truth is that they all differ in certain ways. And our goal really is to help the guests find what fits them best. I do think that Viking has a happy medium for most clients, and it appeals really to the most guests in that it is what we call semi-inclusive, and it is like a luxury product in the type of food and service that they offer, although they don't offer butler service or anything like that like the luxury lines do. But it's a happy medium with what they include. They include beer and wine with lunch and dinner, complimentary Wi-Fi, complimentary bottled water, an excursion on every port. And I think that is something that people are looking for. Most people don't want to pay for a full liquor package or pay for the consumption of liquor on board the ship for everyone else. So it's a happy medium. They've really created their own niche, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that as these products have evolved, when you add up those extra costs, which are not included or maybe never were in these other products, once you add that alcohol package, or even for beer and wine, right? Wi-Fi, tours, and whatnot. Those added extras that are included with the Viking product can really add up to quite a bit. And when you put those together, all of a sudden now you can suddenly afford maybe a more expensive upfront Viking product. Is that correct?
Yeah, when you think about the cost of excursions and the cost of the things that they're including, and you add them into the package price, it really becomes very competitive. But again, it's the value as the guest sees it. We talk about this all the time when we do these live streams, that we have to help the guests figure out what the best value is for them. And everybody sees value differently. So,
yeah. And I think, like I was just kind of alluding to, I think there's an evolution with guests that initially sail. And like I said, I've had coworkers that they're really loyal to this brand. And then once you talk about different products, they're like, oh, I didn't realize, or I didn't know about that product. So there's a little bit of an enlightenment. And like I said, a lot of people are getting frustrated with, they evolve. They might've liked that product the first couple of times, and they, like I said, they don't know any different, and they keep going back to because that's what they know and they're comfortable with. But they get kind of tired, some of these things. Maybe the prices have gone up, or the lines are a little too big, or they might not realize they're getting tired of a big ship experience. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think that once the guest goes from a big ship to a small ship, then there are a lot of differences that people really enjoy. not waiting in line for stuff is one of them, right?
Yeah.
But we talk about this all the time in my office. The first river cruise experience that guests have typically is the experience that they want to stick with. And so everybody always thinks that their river cruise experience is better than everyone else's, because the products themselves are very competitive. They're very service oriented. The food is very good. It's a very young industry, the river cruise business. So they're all trying to find their niche, and in doing so, they're providing an excellent product. And then, with few exceptions, most of the river cruise lines are really, really good. So the first cruise line that people go on for river, they love it, and they tell their friends, "Oh no, you have to go on this line." And I mean, just this past week, I had a client who called, and we were talking through. She came to me about a Viking cruise, and she said, "Oh, my friend said that they really enjoyed, Avalon, and what a great cruise it was." And and we talk about this also often, about how you don't ever know what people's experience is. You don't know if they're used to the Holiday Inn or the Four Seasons. And so depending on that experience is how they're judging the experience they had on a specific line. So, really, it's very hard to take people's reviews or people's information and say, "Oh, this is for me," because you don't know what that person likes. So it could be the right or wrong choice. So our job really is to help the guests find the right choice.
So getting back to the initial question, so when a guest calls you up, like I said, I know there's so many variables, but for someone that's done big ship cruising, what are the maybe the 3 points that you would lead them to that choice of maybe going to the first Viking cruise of some type?
The first thing I think we have to do is let them know that with big ship cruising, right, you always have casinos, you have, Broadway shows, things like that. And, like Royal Caribbean Celebrity, their product is very impressive. They have fantastic casinos, unbelievable shows on board. The passengers on board are 2,400, 3,600, 6,000, now 7,000 on Icon and Utopia. So it's really, they're really getting bigger and bigger. And I think that the guest that is looking for something that's a little bit more intimate, no children, no casino, no smoking, those are the things that, really appeal to a specific clientele. And I think that that's the clientele that really enjoys traveling on Viking. And again, I think that it's the way that we present it is, if these are the things you're looking for, you should experience it once and see if it's something that you like. And also, there are a lot of times where we try to also fit the guest to the right itinerary too, because oftentimes if you're doing something like close in to the United States, the mix of guests on that, like on a Caribbean cruise, for instance, is going to be very different than those that are traveling to Europe or to Asia or Australia, or traveling a long distance to get, to go on the Viking experience. So the clientele can be different. So we spend a lot of time talking about that too, but it is, trying to figure out what appeals to the guest and then fitting them to that, and then letting them know what the differences are with Viking. There's extreme differences. No children is something that, there's one other line that I can think of that doesn't allow children under the age of 18. So it's a unique product. I think that I think appeals to a lot of people because of that.
Yeah, and one of the things that kind of stands out is the chairman's Vikings chairman that came out and basically said straight up, "We don't nickel and dime. There's no nickel and diming with Viking." And it's so true. Little things like the cost of a la carte drink prices and the laundry, and it's very reasonable compared to some of the other products out there.
Oh, absolutely. Their drink package, for instance, is $25 per person per day. That's unheard of. Most cruise lines are charging $85, $95, $110 per day for a beverage package. Viking charges $25 per person per day. So, it is not something that they are. They're making the money off the sale of the original package, not necessarily off the incidentals that are on board. Don't misunderstand. I'm sure they're making money on the incidentals on board, but they're not pushing them. They don't have photographers. They're not stuffing the spa treatments and stuff down your throat when you get on board the ship. They have a beautiful spa that is, rarely has availability. If you're on a cruise, on an ocean cruise, the spas are always very busy. but they're not constantly trying to sell you something, trying to sell you the wine tasting, trying to sell you the bourbon flight, trying to sell you the beverage package, the photo package. That's just not their way. They offer some of those things to those guests that are looking for them, but they're definitely not pushing them.
Yeah, it's a totally different. I think really what you're selling is, and the product itself is a different vibe altogether. And that, like I said, that's not for everybody, because if you're looking for Broadway shows and a more lively, fun ship or whatever, it's a different vibe, isn't it?
100%, totally different vibe. Yeah.
But I think I'm trying to say too is I think there's a lot of people that are really looking for that, but they don't even realize they are, because some of them are burning themselves out on big ship sailing. They just haven't looked at the other products because they're not aware of them or fully aware of them.
Right. I would agree.
Yeah. So, wow, we've touched on that. And I know, it is very subjective. I even saw some comments leading up to this live stream. Everybody has a different viewpoint. We'd love to hear your viewpoints. If you've been on Viking before, if you have a Viking cruise coming up, please write in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Check it into our Viking group. We actually have one of the largest Viking groups on Facebook. We'd love to have you join us. Just give it a search. And if those members are here, let us know about your upcoming cruise. Please check in with us. And if you have a question, Michael Consoli is the largest seller of Viking cruises in the world, I think for 9 years now, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. So he's the top global salesperson for Viking cruises in the world, and with many other brands as well. He's a wealth of knowledge. We have him here today. So if you have a cruise question of any type, please ask below and just say hello. We'd love to hear from you. And I know we have some different questions here. Let's see. Yeah. So please ask your question below. So we have lots of people watching. Let's see here. So I think, what's the biggest when guests come back from Viking and they've never cruised with that brand before? What's some of the top comments that they give you when they come back?
They want to book right away. I mean, it's true. It's probably the most, I've mentioned this before. It's probably the brand that I think we see the most loyalty from. Guests, they come back and they're interested in rebooking right away. And, we love that because it means that we're going to help them with another trip. But the biggest takeaway, I think, is that they're surprised, especially with River, how much they enjoyed it, how much they enjoyed the freedom that the river experience gives them, docking right downtown in these cities, being able to go off and explore on your own and still know where the ship is and how close you are to where you need to be. I also think guests are very surprised at how they are, how much they enjoyed the included excursion, and Viking's been doing this for a while, so they know the best things to see in these cities and what guests are going to want to see. So I think that is some of the biggest takeaway. They're very impressed with the food and the service. I think also, I have to say, my group that I just took on Octantis, they really could not get over how happy the crew is on board the ship. And that is something that I think people are really surprised about, just that how happy they are, how they enjoy what they do. And, and I think that, we see that we say this in the industry, the happy crew creates a happy customer. And so I think Viking truly believes in that.
Yeah, it's noticeable. And I've heard different things from crew members, why they want to work for that brand and what the differences in their life with that brand.
Yeah.
And it, like you said, it shows little things like that. It's all about little things, right, that add up. If you walk into a resort hotel and someone's not smiling, or they're just kind of like, yeah, like, where's your, or
yeah, it sets the tone. It sets the tone right away.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, nobody wants to start their trip off with a surly service person. So yeah.
Like I said, please ask your questions below. We'd love to answer them. Another thing that always stands out, there's always conversations on these groups about, what liquor can I bring aboard? Can I bring liquor aboard if I bottle of wine, champagne, soda, whatnot like that? And of course, with Viking, you can bring anything on board. as far as alcohol.
Bring anything.
Yeah, I know. That's pretty broad. You can bring a bottle of wine on board. You can bring.
Start in Amsterdam, John. You probably should.
Yeah, not anything. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they will allow you to bring liquor and wine on board. They'll even, open the bottle of wine for you in the dining room, and they don't charge a corkage fee, things like that. So I think guests are used to being nickel and dimed, and that is the exact opposite of what Viking offers. So I think people are surprised that they can bring that kind of thing on board. And I remind our guests before they go that they're going to have a refrigerator in their room. So, I mean, if you're off the ship and want to buy cheese or crackers or, things like that you can, only buy in France or whatever, that's fine to take back to your room. And nobody's gonna frisk you at the gateway and say you can't take that on board.
Yeah, my first Viking cruise was on the Rhine during the Christmas markets, and of course, there's so many things you want to shop for and take back. There's beers, German beers, and different liqueurs and different things like that. It's just really, really, amazing. And the fact that you don't have to think about, I can't bring that back, or I'm going to get shipped down and I have to wait till the last day. It's nice to not feel like you're a criminal walking back on the ship, right?
Yeah, and I think people also love that they know they're not going to end up with a $2,000 shipboard bill at the end of the cruise, right? So they love that they pay the fare and they pay for the air and they pick their excursions before they go and they buy the beverage package if they want it. And then when they get on the ship, the only thing they're paying for, if they haven't prepaid for them, are the gratuities. So I think people enjoy the fact that they're not ending up with a $2,000 bill or getting charged $25 to bring the bottle of wine on board, so it can be, open for them in the dining room.
Someone had brought that up on the groups about gratuities with Viking. What is the policy with gratuities? Is it because there was a whole debate about this? I think it's a little bit ambiguous to some guests.
Yeah, I mean, the gratuity is charged just like other lines per person per day. I believe it's $18 per person per day, and it's charged to their shipboard account, or it can be prepaid ahead of time in the My Viking Journey portal. Okay. But, I'm not really sure what the brouhaha is about gratuities. I think, unfortunately, the cruise lines many years ago, streamlined that process so that guests wouldn't feel like they had to choose whether or not to leave a gratuity. So they made it somewhat mandatory for guests to provide the gratuity. So, because as you can imagine, some people don't want to leave a gratuity at all. And if they have bad service, they should let the cruise line know, of course. But so I think the answer to that was for the cruise lines to introduce, a mandatory gratuity.
Okay. And I guess sometimes there's a charge or an optional gratuity for like the tour bus drivers and the tour guides on the included tours, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's optional for sure. I mean, I think that this is a question we get a lot about tipping tour guides and tipping drivers. I think the tour guide, the guideline probably should be $5, €5, whatever, per guest if you feel the tour guide did a great job, and €1 to €2 for the driver. And that is definitely optional. It's not expected. As you can imagine, tipping in other parts of the world are not expected the way they are in the US. So, but yeah, I mean, it's not mandatory, but it definitely, I think people want to recognize the tour guides when they have a great experience and the bus drivers who get them there safely. So yeah, that would be my recommendation.
And I got to tell you, you'll want to tip the bus drivers because they're really, really good. They're excellent. That they take these, first of all, the coaches are super luxurious. They have bathrooms on board. They're very comfortable, leather seats, and just super, super nice. But then on top of that, they take them through these medieval streets where they barely fit, right? It's very impressive driving, the fact that they do so well. So I imagine you'll be as impressed as I was.
Yeah, and I mean, Viking, and the majority of places that they go, especially on the river, they have their own motor coaches on the river, for instance, and they are branded with Viking's information, and they're very, very nice. Some of the nicest motor coaches, with seats that slide out and things like that. So it adds to the comfort of the experience for the guest. And so I think they use their own motor coaches wherever they possibly can.
Yeah, and their motto is if you're new to Viking, exploring the world in comfort, and they really do take that seriously. And I think that's one of the reasons that the guests are so loyal to the brand. Is this, and like we touched on earlier, it's these little things that turn out to be a great overall experience, and like we said, vibe that and people really enjoy it. Like you said, they come right back and they book again and again, and then one thing I want to talk about too is they started with the rivers, right? And then now they're one of the largest river cruises lines in the world, if not the largest.
The largest.
But then they've expanded into ocean
Yeah.
and now expeditions, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the expedition product, having just come off of that, I've been on it before, of course. It really is an excellent product. I think that guests or my group was very surprised at how much they actually just loved the ship in general. We did it on the Great Lakes. I had previously done it, on the coast of Canada, New England. So it is incredible. I've also been to Antarctica, so I know what the experiences are like on these ships. But I have to say that those expedition ships, they just, people ask why they're more expensive. Well, they're more expensive to operate, obviously, because they're 300 plus passengers versus 900 on the ocean. So the cost to operate it is much higher. Plus, they have the cost of all the scientific things that they do, the professionals that they have on board that are assisting with all of that. All the toys, we call them SOBs, the Swiss operations boats, the kayaks, the submarines, all of that. It just is, the cost to operate and maintain those is higher. So that I think that's reflected in the price. But what I think people could not get over is the service and the food on those ships was just incredible. I mean, the staff and crew on there are just outstanding. Some of the best that I've ever encountered. And we were on board with my group, and I think almost every single guest in our group rebooked on board, and most all of them booked for something else on expedition. That's how much they loved it.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was really an incredible experience. So those ships, I think, stand out in the marketplace. I mean, there are some great expedition ships in our industry, but I think the Viking ships are so well purpose built for those areas of the world that they're going. And the cost is reasonable when you compare it to other Antarctica cruises that would be on similar type ships. So they are maximizing the economy of scale by having 300 guests and being able to kind of provide a little bit, well, not a little bit, a better value, I think, than some of the other lines that are traveling in that area.
And if you didn't know, those ships, I actually just commented to someone that had booked that cruise. It was for the first time, and also a Danube River cruise. And I said, the Viking expedition ships are absolutely beautiful from stem to stern. There's no blank space that they forgot about or under decorated, or some ships you see and they're like, oh, it's kind of really not well done, or just kind of like a utility area, even though it's a public space, right? The Viking expedition ships are just stunning from stem to stern. Just incredible.
Beautifully designed, and every inch of space in the cabin is well utilized.
Yeah, I did the Viking Octanus in the Caribbean. It went from Barbados to New York City. Absolutely loved it, and everybody had a great time. And the excursions were really something else. It's incredible. And Michael said there's a full team of a science team that's an expedition team as well that are on board. There's scientists and expedition people, two submarines. It's just an incredible experience. I mean, definitely a bucket list experience in a luxury type of environment. I just could take that ship all over the world. I just loved it. It was perfect. It's kind of a nice in between the intimacy of a small river cruise experience and a bigger ocean ship experience.
Yeah. And I mean, they made every effort, just like they do on all their products, to have that consistency of the fabrics and the finishes, and it has that Viking look, and the guest that's been on river and been on ocean will feel very comfortable on it. They have Manfredi's on board. They have, the cafe, Mamson's, all of the things that you see on board the ocean, they also have duplicated on a smaller scale on expedition. So it is really an unbelievable experience.
Yeah, 24-hour room service, really good room service. Some of the best room service I've ever had.
Yeah.
Really, really nice. Which are all these little things that just to the viewers. If you think about the big ships, a lot of this stuff was included way back when you started cruising. I know for myself. And now all these things are extra. Specialty restaurants with the ocean product, it's included. Room service, it's included. Wi-Fi, it's included. Beer and wine with lunch and dinner, it's included. If you're not a big drinker, you just want to have a drink here and there a la carte, they're affordable. Like I said, the chairman's motto when he does talks to the different media and whatnot, he goes, "We're not going to fleece the guest." That's a quote from him. We're not going to, which he thinks that some of the big lines are actually just making too much money. They're just raking their guests over the coals a little bit, which you feel that way after a while, to be honest. As a cruiser that started in 1989, in 2024, it's like nothing's included. You have to pay for everything, and it's expensive. Where the price of a basic cruise has gone lower, maybe, or stayed the same. They get you on board, but all these extras just add up to almost a luxury type of experience, right? When you're finally done, there's little memes and stuff out there, where people talk about it. So I think for a lot of guests, my opinion is, if you really sit down with someone like Michael and you go over the numbers of the upfront cost and what on a big ship, and then even the final cost, you put those together, and you probably have a Viking experience if it's a good fit for you. It's not for everyone. You might want a Broadway experience with lasers and, a lot of big casino. Maybe you're a casino person. Maybe you want to bring your family. Obviously, that's going to not be a fit for you. But maybe you're going to go on a romantic cruise with your wife to Europe, and it's just going to be you and her, and you want a different, more intimate experience. Yeah. Now we're talking about Viking, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that people they love the value that's included. For sure.
Okay, yeah. So we're gonna get to the questions, and yeah, they look great here. Bill Earl is asking, and before I get started with these questions, Michael's obviously the best in the world with Viking. He knows more than anyone, and he's also just an award-winning. He's in the CLIA Hall of Fame for travel agents for all his work and his career. His contact information down below. You can call him at 1-800-913-7245, and please email him at michael@planmycruise.com and check his website out at planmycruise.com. He'd love to have you as a client if you're available to be one, right? So
absolutely we would.
Yeah, and Bill Earl is writing. He's coming to us from looks like he's actually part of the webinar today through StreamYard. So it's a first. Thanks for signing up, Bill. We are interested in a world cruise, but have only been on Royal and Disney. Would it be a big adjustment for a long cruise such as this? Great question.
Yeah, that's a great question, Bill. I think that a world cruise in itself would be, a great undertaking for somebody that has the time to do it. We have a lot of clients. That do world cruises. I have clients that have done multiple world cruises, some that do them every other year with us. So it is a really great experience and a great way to see the world. I don't think it would be a big adjustment for you to go from Royal or Disney, because I think you'll find, for instance, that the service on board is very good, like your experience on Disney, for instance, also the food. But again, since we've been talking today about value and how that really fits, Viking fits with the value proposition. I mean, for the world cruise, for instance, they include free business class air, excursion credits. I think there's $4,000 to $5,000 in onboard credit, depending on how many cruises you've been on with them. They provide complimentary visas. The Silver Spirits package is included. So the world cruise is an excellent value when you look to what's included with the included excursions and things like that. To be able to travel for that length of time and include the value that Viking includes plus, because now for these itineraries, they're including, as I said, complimentary beverage package and a significant amount of shore excursion and onboard credit for you. And then, if you work with an agent that has a good understanding of the product and where that trip is going to go and how you can maximize the value of that experience, working with an agent like myself, we'd be able to help you maximize that, as well as, we do provide an additional onboard credit gift for our guests that travel with us. But more than that, what we are able to do is help you maximize the experience from the beginning to the end. And I think that world cruise experience, my clients have loved it. I obviously just had almost a dozen couples come off of the world cruise that we had this past year that just ended May 9th. So I have been, pleasantly listening to all the wonderful experiences that they had on that sailing. So I think you'd be very, very happy with it.
Great. Thanks for that, Michael. And Bill, I hope that helped you out. And I know Patty is actually coming to Facebook, and she says, I know this is a common question. Why does Viking need full payment a year in advance?
Yeah, so their product is very different, as we've been talking about. And so they have a very different model when it comes to booking. They want their guests to be fully committed to traveling with them months in advance. So they don't want to spend the last few months before a sailing filling up their ships. They are masters at filling them early. And so those guests that book with them do end up paying a year to 18 months in advance. But keep in mind that even though you pay a year in advance, you still have, on most itineraries that are less than 35 days, you still have until 121 days prior to departure to cancel and get everything back but $100 per person. So there's still the flexibility of cancellation up to 4 months prior to departure on most sailings. But they do collect their money in advance because they want to fill their ships and they want to know their guest is committed. And if the guest doesn't want to commit at that point, they're going to sell the cabin to someone else. But it also lowers the attrition they have right before the sailing departs. And I think that that's their model. That's the way it's been. And I think that's just the way they're going to move forward with it for now.
Thanks, Patty. We appreciate the question. Hope that helped you out here.
It is a great question, and we get it a lot.
And well, you know what jumped out at me too, and I don't know if I have to say it, is when you have only 160 people, I believe, on the river cruise, 350 on the expedition, and 700 on the ocean product, one or two cabins can make a big difference. It's a higher percentage per passenger booking those or room compared to a ship like Icon of the Seas that has 7,000 passengers, right? So it's
right. And I think for guests that are used to doing land tours, for instance, I think that they would better understand the Viking started their business in the river cruise business with ships that were 135, 190 passengers. And if they don't sail full, that the profit margins are lower for them. The guest experience is probably not as good. And so what they want to do is ensure their ships sail full and that they are able to provide the guests with all the experiences that they want. And the reason I mentioned that about land travelers is because if you've traveled with a land tour company before and you've made a deposit on a booking and there's not enough participants, they just cancel the tour. Viking doesn't want to do that. They want to make sure their ships sail at a certain capacity. And in order to do that, they make sure that their guest pays much earlier in the process so that they know that their ships are going to travel full. And
it's funny that you had said that, like it's an experience to have a full ship on a smaller vessel, right? If it's like half full or not full, I think some people felt that during COVID. It's a totally different vibe, isn't it? It's not as fun.
It is. It's not as fun. I think that, obviously they don't need as much crew for a smaller group. They don't need as many food offerings. So I think that, it's a plus for everyone that the ships sail at a certain percentage of occupancy. And, and it keeps the company focused on making sure their ships sail full. And I think that they're masters at filling their ships. I think all these posts we see about people they get 5 brochures or they have all these emails. Well, that's what fills their ships. That and the fact that they have an unbelievably high repeat business and loyalty with their guests, and that the experience is just really, really outstanding.
Yeah, and we've had Joanne's comment here. She's praising Michael. Joanne, we appreciate it so much. And she says, Michael is the best travel agent. Viking is the best cruise line. And that says a lot, doesn't it, Michael? That they've got very loyal guests.
They do. And I have to tell you, Joanne is one of our most traveled guests. She's also one of Viking's probably most traveled guests. She just was with our group and was honored on board for having the most sailings. So she definitely can speak from experience when it comes to, the service that she receives, not only from us, but also from Viking. So yes, thank you so much, Joanne. I love that you're here. It's great to see you.
Yes, thank you, Joanne, and congratulations. Um, and Eileen is checking in from StreamYard. She's part of the webinar link that we put out there for the first time there. Thank you so much for joining, Eileen. And she says, Michael, we've been cruising for decades, and we've always had a good experience on most cruise lines, but nothing is compared to their enjoyment on the Viking cruises they've been on. And their next cruise is coming up in May of 2025 and on Alaska, which I think Viking would do an amazing job in Alaska. That's on my bucket list.
Yeah, I just did that Alaska cruise last year with Viking. It was my, I think, third Alaska cruise, but I was also escorting a group at the time, a very large group who had an amazing experience. I think that, one of the things we didn't mention about the value that Viking includes is, like, for instance, on a lot of their itineraries, they have overnights in certain ports. And that really allows the guests to, we talk about destination immersion, being able to really experience the destination. On the river, for instance, they stay late into the night in certain cities if guests want to go off and have dinner in the city, things like that. And then on the cruises on the ocean, they overnight in many of the ports so that the guests can really experience that. And plus, usually at the beginning and the end, they have an overnight, which really helps the guest. Sometimes they don't have to get there the day before because the ship actually isn't leaving till the next day. So very well thought out itineraries, very customer focused. Many cruise lines don't spend the night in port because it can be very expensive to do, but Viking wants to make sure their ships are in a port as often as they possibly can be. So we've mentioned this before, that with many lines, they are, keeping their ship at sea for 2 days out of the 7 days or 4 days out of the 14, because they want to be able to maximize the revenue that's being spent in the bars and in the casinos and in the spa and the shops and those kind of thing. And that's not really Viking's focus. Viking's focus is to get the guests from place to place and let them have the opportunity to immerse themselves in the destination. And I think people really love that.
And that's exactly what I was thinking about. The other lines are so focused on the bottom line to open those shops up, open that casino up, start selling the, alcohol and any other add-ons, especially restaurants need to open up and so on. It's all about the revenue. And they need to be in business, and that's why we're here. And that's great. But everything you mentioned was the Viking difference.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, we talk about the fact that I've been named Viking's Global Top Producer 9 years in a row, which means I sell more than any other agent in the world for them. But we also sell the other lines. We sell a lot of the other lines, and we see those lines changing their model. We see their competition, or what would be considered their competition, or luxury lines that are higher than them. We see them doing the same things. We see them changing their model and overnighting in certain ports and taking advantage of the things that have made Viking successful. And that's great. It creates more competition in the marketplace. And, that's why I think working with a seasoned agent, you're going to be able to have somebody like myself. I've been on over 250 cruises all over the world, on all different itineraries, all different ships, all different cruise lines. We can help you find what's perfect for you. So the Viking product is a great product. And for most people, it's a great experience. And some people may need more than that, or they may want less than that. And that's the beauty of working with somebody that knows how to find the perfect product for you.
Yeah. And we've got someone that had actually just commented. They said, from the outside looking in, the Viking kind of looks kind of monotone, and I've kind of heard that a little bit. Not IKEA, of course. I don't believe in that at all. But they maybe just they're so used to a real bright, flashy product, compared to the Scandinavian design. Then the same person basically had said, this has been very knowledgeable and interesting. I think they're learning about the product, and that's what this is all about, everyone. It's about learning about different things. If we're just talking to the choir here, it's not always fun. We want to tell people about the Viking product that they're not aware of it. A lot of us are busy and don't have time to learn or geek out like I do on these things. And of course, Michael, it's his business, but the product is amazing. And just like anything, you can look at pictures and you can hear about other people's experiences, but once you've experienced, you're like, okay, I get it now. Like, I didn't think I'd ever like a river cruise. I was like, you know what? I like my Coco Locos, sitting by a big pool with a band, playing on the deck here. And I was a big ship fan. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I love river cruising. So,
I think the interesting thing is this is going to take me a minute, which it usually does when we have a question.
Yeah, that's great.
Very early when I started in this business in 2001, right? So, a long time ago, 23 years ago, I was touring some Holland America ships, and that some of them were new, some of them were old. And I remember saying to somebody, they all look exactly the same. I mean, there's no like difference between these ships and the answer I got was that client actually likes the consistency of, knowing that they feel comfortable, right? Well, Viking has mastered that. So when you say it looks a little quiet or plain, it is very Scandinavian in design. They're very their designs and what they do to make their ships look good from ship to ship. So you're going to feel the river, the ocean, the expedition. They're all going to have that same feel. The natural woods, the white leathers, the lighter tones. It really is a very comfortable environment. And I think people love that. They love the consistency and they love the Scandinavian design. It is very comfortable. So at first it may look a little cold or IKEA-ish, but it is definitely, you won't have to put any of it together. I'll put it that way. But it is really high quality stuff. Most of it is made specifically for them. And it is really incredible, very comfortable cabins, very comfortable public spaces, and all extremely well thought out. And the first time you step on a river cruise ship and see the Aquavit Terrace and how it can be 3 different multi-purpose venues just because of simply the way they designed it, it'll click with you why they do what they do. They're very, very good at it.
And someone actually wrote here, Lena checked in from StreamYard here, and she says another beauty of Viking, no formal nights, which I know people like that might have been fine the first couple times, but between the cost of having to pay for extra for your baggage and then keeping it wrinkle free, and people just want to relax, right?
Yeah, and Lena, I have to agree with you. We should have mentioned that as one of the best value statements in the beginning of the webinar, because I personally, I don't mind getting dressed up, but it's my least favorite thing to do on a cruise. I think that people love the whole, country club casual atmosphere for dinner, where they're still not allowing jeans and halter tops and flip flops in the dining room, but you can just wear khakis and a polo shirt or a nice dress, or for women, capri pants and a nice top, something like that. It's very casual, but it's comfortable, and they want their guests to be comfortable. And I think a great example of that, not regarding the dress code, but just in general, is on the expedition ships, for instance. The dining room does not seat all the guests on board the ship. It only seats a certain number of guests, and that's because when you're on an expedition trip, you're off the ship, you're on Zodiacs, you're on kayaks, you're on the Swiss operations boat, you're doing landings, you're putting on your cold weather gear and coming back and putting your wet jacket in the warming closet for it to get dry for the next expedition, which may happen in the afternoon. And at the end of the day, people didn't necessarily want to go to the dining room. So in the World Cafe, they have a grill that they have a whole selection of steaks and seafood and lobster and fish that you can choose from, and they grill it to order. And it's just as good as dining in the dining room. It just does not require that you even change at all. You can just go and enjoy all the same foods that they offer in the dining room, and even more because of that whole steak bar. They have a sushi bar that's incredible, a dedicated sushi station, an Asian themed part of the World Cafe where they offer when we were on board, they had this incredible sushi offering, as well as, king crab legs. And, it was really unbelievable. So they are not pushing formal nights. They are, they're wanting the guests to be comfortable the way they want to be comfortable. If they want to go to the dining room, they can. If they want to go to the World Cafe and experience the of incredible food they would in the dining room, that they can do that. So it's a really nice option.
Yeah, and thanks for that explanation. And Kathy West is checking in from YouTube. She goes, love Viking and small ship experience. No crowds, no waiting in line. Wonderful crew. Just wonderful. Going on my 4th to Iceland, Greenland this summer. Can't wait. And thanks, Kathy. We really appreciate you checking in.
Yeah, that's awesome, Kathy. I'm sure you will enjoy that itinerary.
And Dave is checking in, and he says, we have our first Viking cruise on the Polaris in October. We just booked a river cruise for the Christmas markets in 2025. Love the Christmas markets. I'm now considering an ocean. What similarities or differences are there in the ocean product?
Yeah, so different than the expedition product would be what we just mentioned, the availability in the World Cafe to not have to go to the dining room, things like that. The ocean product's not going to have the submarines or the Swiss operation boats or things like that, but it's a very large, ship with lots of public space, and you never feel like you're with 934 guests. It is really a great experience. The cabins are going to be slightly larger than Octantis or Polaris, and the standard cabins also larger than what's on board the River product, obviously, because River is very limited as to the size of the cabins. But the ocean product really offers a lot more. They offer an additional specialty dining called the Chef's Table. So there are a lot of many similarities and just a few differences, but mainly the size of the ship, the things that the ship has on board. But what it will be consistent is the service, the food, the finishes, as we talked about. And then really one of the most important things about ocean, and it's so funny because today I was telling somebody on my team that we were doing this and they were like, make sure you talk about this. So this is a great opportunity for me to mention it. One of the biggest differences on ocean, and this is true also of expedition, is that different from River, is that the excursions open to you based on the category of cabin that you book. So all those included excursions that are offered and the optional excursions, they're offered first to the suite guests, the owner suite, the explorer suite guests, and then they're offered to the penthouse junior suite guests, and then they're offered to the penthouse verandas, and then to the deluxe verandas, and then to the verandas. So, when you get down to those lower category cabins, the availability of the optional excursions and the times that the included excursions are offered are really limited. So we talk about that a lot with our guests because for certain itineraries, the excursions are really important. The excursions offered through the ship. And so it's really important that you have the right category to make sure you get the excursions that you want. And that is something that, we can help you figure out because all the itineraries are different based on the demand that those itineraries have and how important that having that higher category cabin might be. So, but that is one of the biggest differences between ocean, expedition, and river is that ocean and expedition, they do prioritize access to the excursions based on category booked. And I just want to clarify that by saying it's exactly as I said. It's the owner suite, then the explorer suites, then the penthouse junior suites, then penthouse verandas, then deluxe veranda, then veranda. So within the deluxe verandas, for instance, there are 6 different categories. That doesn't matter. All the deluxe verandas open at the same time. So whether you're in DV1 or DV6, you're going to open at the same time all the other deluxe verandas open. And that's really important to keep in mind that if you want to increase your advantage for excursions, that, the best way to do that is to be in a penthouse veranda. And again, it depends on the itinerary, how important that might be. So that's something that a seasoned agent would be able to help you to determine.
So my guess, based on that explanation, this is a big deal in some places.
It is a big deal in some places. I mean, it is something that we make a real effort to explain to our guests, which is why my team member mentioned it to me today. It's something that we take the time to explain to our guests because, we don't want them to be disappointed when the excursions open. And I can tell you there are a lot of calls that we get that people are very disappointed that they weren't able to get what they want because on a specific itinerary, those excursions are higher in demand than they might be somewhere else in the world.
Yeah, and great explanation and insight into these little things make a difference. Every product's got their quirks, right? So, and Dave, what just jumped out to me when I heard your question.
Sorry, one quick thing. I have to just say, because it is something that people ask me all the time, why do they do that? Well, they're offering 934 guests the same included excursion in Rome or in Venice, right? They have to prioritize it somehow. That excursion is offered at 6 different times. And whether you get it at 9 o'clock in the morning or at noontime, that's going to keep you from going on the afternoon excursion you want. It makes all the difference in the world. But they have to prioritize the 934 guests somehow. This isn't true on the river, obviously, right? Because all the guests on the river are entitled to the excursion. But it's much easier for them to manage 135 or 190 guests on the river and have them do the same excursion. The problem that the ocean and the expedition product gave them is that they have to prioritize it somehow.
Yeah. And what I was just going to say is just what jumped out at me as to Dave's questions was the pools on the ocean product. Of course, you have the large main pool, which is beautiful. And then you have the really nice infinity pool in the back, which are just beautiful spaces.
Right. And the river has no pool. There is no pool on the river. So yes, definitely that's a great point too, John, that the pool's on board. The river also has no spa. It has no gym. And Expedition and Ocean do have beautiful spas and beautiful gyms. But the reason that is on the river is because they feel like, the rivers in Europe and elsewhere where Viking cruises, they're like highways, right? And they feel that if the guest wants to go to the gym, that's certainly something that they can arrange. Their concierge can arrange for somebody to go to a gym in one of these cities because they dock right downtown, and they could go to a gym, or they could arrange for a spa or whatever for somebody. That's not necessarily true when you're out in the middle of the ocean, or on the Great Lakes or crossing the Drake Passage. So the larger ships have those amenities.
And of course, the river vessels are really limited by the locks that they go through on the rivers. So that's a big restraint, where ocean ship, of course, can be much bigger and have all those amenities, But Becky is checking in from YouTube, and she was asking Michael, how does Viking compare to Emerald Cruise Line?
Yeah, so Emerald would be their Scenics value line. So it's to me, it's definitely going to be less of an experience than what Viking offers. I think that there are, just like at any cruise, with any of the cruise lines, there are the lower lines, the mid product, the premium product, the luxury product. Emerald's going to be, not as inclusive. The experience is not going to be as service oriented as Viking. It would definitely be, in my opinion, a step below Viking. So, but again, everybody has a product that appeals to them, and it might be the right fit for you or someone else, and Viking might be a better fit. It just depends. So it's something that you need to work with your travel agent to figure out whether or not it's the right choice for you.
Great. And Lana also had a similar question. How does Viking compare to Regent or Silver Sea?
Oh, this is a great question we get all the time, because, Viking's been named like the #1 luxury product by several different magazines. And the Viking product is considered luxury in the marketplace, but they don't have butlers. They don't have, they don't have frette linens, things like that. So if the guest is looking for butler service or frette linens, or looking for an all-inclusive experience, meaning all beverages, all excursions, all your airfare, door-to-door transfers, things like that, then Regent and Silver Sea is the right product for them. If they're looking for something that's more semi-inclusive in the luxury marketplace, then Viking might be a better fit. So the service, I think, and the food are very good on the Viking product. And Regent and Silver Sea are going to have slightly smaller ships with more luxurious environment, as I said, with the frette linens and different types of bath amenities and things like that. Many of the cabins have butler service, something that is would be a step above if you're looking for those types of things. So that would be the biggest differences between Regent, Silver Sea, and Viking. Those two other lines are going to be all inclusive.
Great. And Jake Aviation's checking in from YouTube. He said he just got home from a cruise on the Polaris 10 days ago. He loved every minute and would love to go again. I bet. Like I said, we could talk all day about these products.
Yeah, it does not surprise me, Jake, because it's an excellent product, and I felt the same way. Even though it was my third experience on board, I definitely did not want to get off.
Yep, and we've got a guest coming in from YouTube, and they said, "What is Viking's future towards Australia and New Zealand area? Some of these lines are reducing their trips there, so I guess they're curious what's going to happen in that region of the world." If you have any insight, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, look, Viking has their itineraries all the way through 2026. With the same investment that they've had in Australia, New Zealand, even some more in Australia, because they are doing a couple of circumnavigations of Australia, a couple of cruises there that are specific to going all the way around Australia. So I don't see that waning off for them at all at this point.
Right. We have S. Mitty checking in from YouTube from Boston, Mass. So back at you. Thank you for checking in today on this Sunday afternoon. We appreciate it. And Yvonne is checking in. McMillan is checking in from YouTube. She goes, the favorite thing about payment is you can wait 6 months prior for payment if you have a cruise payment already. I can't speak today. If you already have a booked cruise with Viking, right?
Yeah. So that's a great point, Yvonne. Thanks for being here, by the way. So that Yvonne is saying that if a guest has more than one booking with Viking, we are able to push back the final payment to 6 months prior. So if they have a current booking that they have that 12 or 18-month final payment on, and they book something else, we are able to push the final payment to 6 months prior. And what Yvonne is saying is what we work with our clients to do, which is to make sure they have another booking made before they go on the Viking booking they have, so they don't have to worry about paying a year or 18 months in advance. So great point, Yvonne. Thanks for that.
And that makes for a happy person, right?
Oh yeah, makes for a happy person and a happy travel agent.
Yeah. And Kathy West agrees. She goes, Yvonne, that's exactly worked for me too. So,
yeah, exactly.
And Yvonne's wanted to give you a compliment. She goes, I'm sure Michael has hundreds, if not thousands, of clients, but he makes you feel like you're his only client. I'm happy to be one of them.
Oh, thank you, Yvonne. That makes my day. I appreciate that. We appreciate you too.
And it sounds like Lee Kearney is checking in. He goes, I agree. I have 10 minutes to mine open. It must be his excursions.
Yes. He's waiting for his excursions to open at 3 p.m. Eastern time or 12 p.m. Pacific. So get in there early, Lee, and see if they're open. Sometimes they open a few minutes early.
And Bill Earls has a follow-up question about the World Cruise question that he had earlier. He says, does excursions choice by room happen for the World Cruise as well?
It does, Bill. It does. And so it is something that we talk with our guests about and give them a great way to attack the excursions to make sure they get what they want on the World Cruise. But it is also, all of Viking's cruises have this tiered access to the excursions based on category booked. So it is a very important component of your planning.
Yeah. And Kathy West is calling you out, Michael. She said, there is a pool on the Duro ships, small, but it's there. And I was thinking, well, the Viking Mississippi has a little.
Yeah, Viking Mississippi has a pool. Yeah.
So does the ships, the river cruise ships in Egypt, right?
That's correct. Egypt does too. But the 90 plus ships that they have on the rivers in Europe, on the main rivers in Europe, they do not have a pool. And
I guess they're very, very small, but they are there. So Kudos to Kathy for checking in and bringing us back on track here. But wow, we've covered so much and wonderful comments and questions from everybody. We appreciate Yvonne, Kathy, Lee, Bill checking in, Becky, Dave. Really nice to see if I missed anybody's questions. I think we covered most of them here. Really, really nice. So any other final thoughts here before we close out for the day here, Michael?
No, I mean, look, I think that we see a lot. I have to tell you, usually the first 4 months of the year are our busiest time of the year. That has not slowed down for us with the Viking product. I mean, again, we see promo codes for sailings, close-in sailings, a few that are not so close in, things like that. And I think that those promo codes are, things that people ask about all the time. What's the best time to book? Things like that. To me, the best time to book is the earlier you book, the better. 99% of the time, you're going to get the absolute best price with the most selection. So booking early is going to give you really all the things, the opportunity to book all the things that you want, the pre and post extensions if you want them, the right cabin, the right location. So booking early to me is always the best advantage. If there's a promo that comes later that applies to the booking, that's something that we will certainly help our guests take advantage of if we're able to do so. But I firmly believe that booking early is the best way to get the best value out of the Viking product. There are limited opportunities where there might be special savings for close in. And typically, then you really don't have a whole lot to say about where you are, whether or not you get to pick what cabin you're in, things like that. So again, it's something else that falls back on what we talked about earlier, which is what's the best value for the guests. Some people don't care where they are, whether they got the excursions, whether they have an obstructed view cabin. There aren't any obstructed view cabins, by the way, on Viking. But things like that is something that is really important, that you work with somebody that can help you figure that out and what's best for you.
So something that stands out, one final question I had is, if people are new to the Viking product and they're so used to doing Caribbean cruises or cruising from the United States, loop cruises out of the different ports, maybe traveling to Europe and some of these exotic destinations that Viking goes to, they might be thinking, I can't afford the air. Air is so expensive now. Does Viking have included air in some destinations?
There are a few sailings that have free air, for instance. And then some of the promos that we talked about, they will introduce free air in order to sell a ship that might be close in. Specific sailings that aren't selling as fast as they would like to, but much closer in, we might see that. But what I think Viking realizes that some of the other lines don't is that, like, for instance, some of the luxury lines say, air is included, but if you don't take our air, then you get a $1,200 or a $5,500 savings because you're not taking our business class air. Viking's included air is included when they offer free air. There's no credit if you don't take the free air. And then in turn, they're also providing, I think personally, a significant savings, especially on the river when it comes to airfare. The ocean product is a little bit higher for airfare cost. But even with that, I mean, the savings is usually pretty good. We're seeing airfare go through the roof for economy, premium economy, business class, very, very high for our guests that are buying air directly with the airline instead of taking it through our vendors. So most of the time, the Viking air is a good value. Again, it just depends on how flexible you can be, right? Because we have to work within Viking's contracted rates to get those air schedules. And so that price that they offer at $9.99 or $7.99 or $5.99, they're somewhat limited as to what they can offer. But if you work with the Air Plus and things like that, you pretty much maximize the savings and still get a good schedule for yourself. And that's something that we help our clients do. It's something we feel very strongly about. The air sets the tone. So I think it's really a case by case basis, but the majority of the time, the air through Viking is a very good value for the guest.
Yeah, I think I might have worded my question a little bit wrong, but I still got that point because sometimes I know that was a promotion that used to have in the past more so. But I think what you're saying is, yes, air is expensive if it's a la carte, if you buy it directly, but Viking has contracted rates because a lot of their guests, especially to the rivers, are flying. Because they have so many guests flying, they can pass that savings on to their guests, and it can be a really good value, right?
It can be a very good value. And I mean, they used to, for instance, on the Grand European or even the France's Finest, the 2 river cruises that are 14 days, they have others that are longer. But those 2, they offered free air. And what I think they determined was that when the guests didn't want to take the air through the cruise line, there was no savings. So they did away with that. So really, we only see free air, on those itineraries for months that may be very, very difficult for them to sell. But still, even with the cost that they're offering the air to the guests on those itineraries, it is still a very good savings.
And we've got one final question from Leslie Jones. I know we want to get to her question here before we go. She goes, can you explain the difference between Viking Air and Air Plus? And I know that it's still kind of confusing to me sometimes, to be honest, but I know we've actually had live streams on this, and I'll probably try to repost that to the group where we talk just about this. But if you can touch on that for a minute, Michael.
Sure. So the Viking offers their contracted air rate basically 3 ways. You can take their air and just pay the air cost, and then they will assign you a schedule about 120 to 90 days prior to departure, and you will have that schedule be what it is. There's not you don't have a say in the schedule, or if you want to make it earlier or later or anything like that. They also have My Viking Air, which can be done through My Viking Journey, I believe, as early as 150 days prior to departure. But keep in mind that both of those are much later in the process, right? So the contracted rates that the cruise line offers have already been picked over by those guests who have taken Air Plus, because the Air Plus guests, the guests who pay the Air Plus fee, have the opportunity to to select their flights as early as 10 months prior to departure. We recommend a little bit later than that, about 8 months prior to departure, because we feel like that's when the contracts are maximized for Viking. But so if you do the Air Plus, you can work on your Air much earlier, and you're going to have much better selection of flights available to you at the time that you do that, if you do the Air Plus. And if you work with somebody like me, an experienced seasoned travel agent, I actually do that work for you. So I work with the air department to get the flights for you, so you don't have to sit on hold for a long time and do that. And we have a whole process for our guests that we make sure that we have what they want for preferences and things like that. And we work from those preferences to get the schedule that best fits what they asked us for within the cruise line's contracted rate. So the biggest advantage is that with Air Plus, you do have the opportunity to have a say as to how the flights are routed as early as 10 months prior. Again, we recommend 8 months prior, but it gives you an advantage over those that are just going to wait and get assigned whatever is left at 4 months or 5 months prior to departure.
And translated, I hear you saying, so if somebody if you go through Viking and you buy their contracted air, the included air or through them, and you're not happy with the route that's taking, or there's a big layover that you'd rather not have, you really don't have a say into it unless you book it yourself independently, right? But with Viking,
go ahead. Sorry, Todd.
With Air Plus, though, you can actually ask them to change it and maybe to something different. Is that correct?
Right. Without the Air Plus, there's no say in the air schedule. So, and that's something that I think we have people that are like, well, I'm just going to wait and see what we get. And then when they get the air, they're not happy with it. And then we try to change it. And there's really no other opportunities to change it, because maybe the one connections were already taken, the 5 contracted seats that the airline had with the one connection flights, they were already taken by the guests who had Air Plus or things like that. So it's, air is a very, very complicated part of the package, and the way that it works with the cruise line. I wish it was as cut and dry as saying, "Oh, we're going to pay $9.99 for the air, and then we can go and send Michael this Delta schedule that has 2-hour connections with one connection, and it's exactly what I want, and Michael's going to be able to get it." It's not how it works. That air actually has to price under their contracted rate. And by the way, that price has nothing to do with the pricing you see online. It has to do with their contracts. So it's a very complicated process. And I think that having an advocate for you with the air is really, really important, because we're able to help you navigate that. We know the connection times. We know what cities to connect through. We know what airlines are going to give you, better connections and things like that. And so having done this for over 23 years, I think that experience is very valuable to our guests. And we talked about this before. We're also the safety net. If you have a problem, we're your advocate. We are the person that will assist you with getting that fixed. If you're traveling and you can't get through to Viking's emergency line, we're going to be next in line. And yes, we take those calls in the middle of the night all the time to help our guests get to where they're going. So it's very, very important, I think, to have that advocate and somebody that does that for you. And so whether you have Air Plus or don't have Air Plus, at that point, we're still going to assist you. But the advantage to having the Air Plus is it gives us the opportunity to help you find the flights that you would really prefer, that are going to have good connection times and are going to get you to where you're going at reasonable times. And so that, I think it's really a no-brainer to pay the extra fee so that we have access to those schedules earlier.
And how much does it cost as an add-on, the Viking Air Plus?
Yeah, so it used to be $100. They just raised it to $150, and so it's $150 to do the Air Plus, and so that just allows us to do it early. And now it does have to be paid when we add Air Plus. So we used to add it all the time, and when we made the deposit, which I still recommend doing, is adding it and paying it at deposit. But we sometimes wait until the air opens and then we add it then so that we can do it. But the Air Plus now does have to be paid when the guest adds the Air Plus.
Okay, awesome. And I know you've kind of alluded to it. If any of the folks watching from home would like to work with you, how could they do that?
Yeah, the best way is to email me or call us at 800-913-7245, or you can email us at michael@planmycruise.com. Right at the bottom of the screen, you can see that there. But certainly would love to help you. with your booking with Viking. So or any other cruise line for that matter.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Michael, for joining us today and enlightening us on the Viking product and how there's so many people that are cruising today. I really think they're so into their different brands, which is great. But now they know a little bit more about the Viking product when they're ready to take that leap or for their first cruise. Really, really nice. And everyone else, thank you so much for taking the time Sunday here to join us and learn about something new. We're going to be back in the future. Please keep us. Look out for us, and we can hopefully enlighten you on some new things the next time. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, and thanks for all the great questions. Thanks, John.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.